Does your market know who you are as a person? If you're the face of your company, such as a coach or author, it's a given that people will associate your brand with you. However, if you're a business where your product or service is the brand, it's a little more difficult for your market to recognize you. And in either case, if you don't have a clear brand voice, it's unlikely that anyone will recognize you without a name, logo, or face. When people can't distinguish your content from others, you're just another faceless business entity. And it's impossible for customers to form a true connection or relationship with someone who has no personality. Having a distinct sound and feel to all your content changes all that. It makes you stand out from everyone else in your market. And when the voice of your brand is consistent in all of your content, people know they can talk to you and actually have a relationship. But your brand voice consists of not just the words you use, but also how you put them all together, word choice, grammar, sentence structure, etc. It reflects the personality of your brand through the tone of voice you express in all your content, including visuals and multimedia. So now the main question you need to answer is, if your brand were a person, how would you describe her or him? Or looking at it another way, if you met your brand at a social event and had a conversation for an hour, how would you describe it afterwards? What personality traits does it exhibit? And on the flip side, how do you want your customers to describe you after they've had a chance to get to know you a little? How do you want them to feel about you? People will remember your character traits and the voice you speak with, but they don't remember a faceless entity that speaks in a generic, flat tone. Now, once you've clearly defined your brand personality, you can take on the task of describing the tone of voice for all your content. So, how do you go about answering that key question and defining your brand voice? Here are the 3 main steps to get you on the right path. Step 1 is to describe your brand's personality and tone, like we discussed before. And to start honing in on that, the first thing you do is take a close look at your customers. Then review and define the core values of your business, because those core values should always be reflected in your brand voice. Then do some brainstorming and pick 3 adjectives for your personality. Select words that people might use to describe a real person. For example, are you professional, inspiring, and intellectual? Are you, as a brand, down to earth, loving, and eco-conscious? Now pick words to describe the tone of voice that reflects the personality you just brainstormed. For example, is your tone of voice sarcastic in your humor or silly? Do you speak very formally, or do you use a lot of personal anecdotes and casual slang? Remember, your tone of voice reflects the type of person you are as a brand. Step 2 is to create your brand voice guidelines. Here's where you're going to get down to the real nitty-gritty of defining your brand voice. You need to detail all the types of language you'll use in all your content. The best way to do this, so that it's easy for anyone to follow, is to create a brand voice chart that includes a number of different language guidelines. Include the wording people should use for all the types of content. For example, formality, slang, use of technical jargon, using active versus passive voice, and types of humor or any humor. And make sure you note the places impacted by your voice tone and how it might differ from place to place in different types of content. Be sure to specify do's and don'ts for each type of language use. For instance, where they can use technical jargon when creating content and where absolutely not to use technical jargon. And definitely give specific language examples to clarify what's the right tone and what's the wrong tone of voice to use. Your third step is to communicate to team members all your guidelines so everyone is consistent when they create content. Even if you're the only person creating content in your business, you'll need to ensure you follow the guidelines that you've set for the brand voice. But solo entrepreneurs rarely operate entirely alone. And anyone you hire needs to know the details of your brand voice. So keep your guidelines updated in a shareable document and make communicating your brand voice a priority whenever onboarding, say, new employees or outsourcing to freelancers. In fact, make it a point to use your brand tone and voice in everything you do, and people will start to naturally take on that tone the more they hear it. Would you like some help with figuring out your brand personality? We put together a big list of adjectives that are great for describing brand personality, along with some fill-in-the-blanks questions that'll help get you started with that brainstorming step. If you haven't already read our blog post on this topic, just read through, and at the bottom there's a place where you can enter your email and download that big list of adjectives and the fill-in-the-blanks that I just mentioned. Just head over to this URL. Head over to contentsparks.com/isityou, is-it-you. Head over there and grab your download.